Most of what you've been told about AI automation is either exaggerated, outdated, or just flat out wrong. And I'm not talking about the fringe stuff. I mean the mainstream advice, the LinkedIn takes, the conference slides, the things that sound reasonable until you actually try to build something with them. Today, I'm going through the 6 biggest myths I hear about AI automation from businesses, from operators, even from other agencies. And I'm going to show you what's actually true instead. Because if you're making decisions based on any of these, you're probably wasting time, money, or both. Let's get into it. Myth number 1, you need to be technical to build automations. And look, I get where this comes from. When people hear automation, they picture code, they picture APIs, complicated dashboards with 100 nodes connected together. And yes, some of that exists, but here's what I've found after building automations across dozens of businesses. The technical part is rarely the hard part. The hard part is knowing what to automate. It's understanding your process well enough to say, if this step happens every time, it follows the same logic and it doesn't need a human decision. That is process mapping, that's operational thinking, and that's a skill that ops people, founders, and project managers already have. Think of it this way. You don't need to be a plumber to know that water should flow downhill. You don't need to know pipe diameters or joint specifications, but you do need to know where the water needs to go. That's what process mapping is. You're designing where the work flows. The tools, whether that's Make, Zapier, N8N, whatever, those are the pipes. Someone can fit them for you, but nobody can tell the water where to go if you don't know your own building. Most of the best automation projects I've worked on started with a non-technical person who really understood their process, sketching something out on paper, not with a developer writing code. So if you've ever thought, I'm not technical enough for this, you've probably got the most important skill already. You know how your business actually works. That's the foundation everything else gets built on. Myth number 2, AI automation works out of the box. There's a version of this myth that goes, just plug in ChatGPT and watch everything run itself, or sign up for this tool, connect it to your CRM, done. And the reality is not even close. Here's what actually happens. You sign up for a tool and it connects to your system. And then you realize your data isn't clean, your fields aren't standardized, half your contacts don't have the information the automation needs to make a decision. So the tool technically works, it just doesn't do anything useful yet. It's a bit like buying flat pack furniture. You've technically got a bookshelf in the box, but what you've actually got is a pile of wood, some screws, and an instruction manual that assumes you already own a drill. The tool is the kit. Your data, your processes, your business logic, that's the assembly. In my experience, the tool itself is maybe 20 to 30% of the work. The rest is configuration, data prep, edge case handling, testing, and this is the big one, training the people who actually use it. What I consistently see is businesses budgeting for the software, but not for the setup, and then wondering why it doesn't deliver. So the truth isn't that AI automation doesn't work, it's that it doesn't work without deliberate setup. The tool is the starting line, not the finish. Myth number 3. It's too expensive for small or mid-sized businesses. Now, I understand this one. If you Google AI automation, you'll see case studies from enterprise companies with 6-figure budgets. You'll see platforms that charge thousands a month, and it's easy to think that's just not for me. But here's what most people miss. The cost of automation isn't just what you pay for the tools, it's what you're already paying to not have it. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say you've got someone on your team who spends 45 minutes a day on manual data entry, copying information from one system to another, updating spreadsheets, sending confirmation emails, 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's 3 hours and 45 minutes a week, and over a year, that's roughly 195 hours. If that person's time costs you, say, £20 an hour, which is, conservative, you're spending £3,900 a year on copy-paste. That's basically a full month of someone's working time gone. Now, a basic automation to handle that kind of workflow, you're looking at maybe £15 to £65 a month in software costs, depending on complexity. That's somewhere between £180 and £780 a year. So you're spending £780 to save £3,900. That's a 5-to-1 return on a conservative estimate, and that's before you factor in fewer errors, faster turnaround, and freeing that person up to do work that actually moves the business forward. The truth is, automation doesn't have to be a big bang investment. You can start with one workflow, prove the value, and build from there. The businesses that get the most from automation aren't the ones with the biggest budgets. They're the ones that start with the clearest problem. Myth number 4, you need to automate everything all at once. I see this pattern all the time. A business gets excited about automation. They look at their operations and they think, right, let's automate lead gen, onboarding, invoicing, reporting, and customer follow-ups, all of it. And 3 months later, nothing's finished. Everything's half built. The team's exhausted and someone says, automation just doesn't work for us. But the automation wasn't the problem. The approach was. Think about it like building a house. You wouldn't try to pour the foundations, frame the walls, and tile the roof all at the same time. You've got to do it in order. Each stage supports the next. Automation works the same way. What I consistently see working is what I'd call a lone domino approach. You pick one process, the one that's most painful, most repetitive, or the most clearly defined. You automate that properly. You let the team get comfortable with it. You learn what works and what doesn't. And then you use that momentum to tackle the next one. And here's the thing most people don't realize. Those early automations teach you about your own systems. You discover data gaps, process inconsistencies, things you assumed were standardized but actually aren't. It is much better to discover those on one workflow than on 5 simultaneously. Start with one domino. Knock it over properly. The rest will follow. Myth number 5. More automation equals a better business. I know that sounds odd, but hear me out. Automation is a tool, and like any tool, using more of it doesn't automatically make things better. A hammer is useful. 12 hammers aren't 12 times more useful. At some point, you've just got a lot of hammers. What I see in businesses that over-automate is a different kind of mess. Instead of manual chaos, they've got automated chaos. They've got workflows triggering other workflows, notifications firing everywhere, data moving between systems with no one really sure what's happening in the middle. Imagine a restaurant kitchen. You could automate the fryers, the ovens, the plating, the order routing, but if no one's tasting the food, checking the quality, reading the room, you haven't got a better kitchen. You've got a fast kitchen that serves really bad food confidently. So the goal isn't maximum automation, it's appropriate automation. It's asking, does this process benefit from being automated, or does it actually benefit from human judgment, creativity, or nuance? Some things should stay manual. Customer complaints that need empathy, strategic decisions that need context, creative work that needs human perspective. Automating those doesn't make them better, it makes them worse, faster. The businesses I see getting the best results aren't the ones with the most automations, they're the ones that automated the right things and left the rest alone. Finally, myth number 6, AI automation replaces your team. Now, I understand why people believe this. The headlines are relentless. AI will eliminate millions of jobs. This tool is replacing your entire marketing department. You've seen them, and if you're a business owner, it is tempting to think, maybe I can run leaner. Maybe I don't need that person. But that's not what I see happening. Not in practice, not in the businesses I work with. What I actually see is this. People spend a huge chunk of their day on admin, data entry, status updates, chasing information, formatting reports, moving things from one system to another. In my experience, it's often somewhere between 30 and 50% of someone's week that is just admin tax. Automation doesn't replace that person. It removes the admin tax. And suddenly that same person has 30 or 50% more capacity to do the work they were actually hired for. The thinking, the relationship building, the judgment calls, the creative problem solving. Let me put it another way. If someone on your team is spending 2 hours a day on repetitive admin, that's 10 hours a week, 520 hours a year, that's 13 full working weeks. That's basically 3 months, a whole quarter of their year spent on tasks that don't really need a human brain. Automation gives you those 13 weeks back, not by removing the person, by removing the work that was wasting them. The best automation doesn't make your team smaller, it makes your team better. It lets people do more of the work that they're good at and less of the work that nobody should be doing manually in the first place. And honestly, the businesses that use automation to replace people usually end up worse off for it. They lose institutional knowledge, they lose context and the human relationships that actually drive the business. The ones that use it to empower their team, they're the ones that scale. So there you go. 6 myths, and if I had to boil it all down to just one idea, it would be this. AI automation isn't magic, it's infrastructure, it's plumbing. And like any good infrastructure, it works best when it's designed around how your business actually operates, not how a software vendor thinks it should. You don't need to be technical. You don't need a massive budget. You don't need to automate everything. You just need to start with a clear problem and build from there. If you found this useful, there will be more like it coming. We break down how AI automation actually works in practice. No hype, no jargon, just what we see in the real world. So if that's your kind of thing, subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.